Dad looked out from the old photograph, smiling. He couldn't see his daughter's tears, couldn't comfort her, or help with even the simplest advice. Alex's father had died 8 years ago when she was only 10. 4 years after his death, her mother, Deborah, brought Roman into their home, a thrice-divorced local playboy. One day, Deborah admitted to her daughter that she had loved Roman since her youth and had always waited for him to notice her. Alex was deeply hurt by this confession. Did that mean her mother had never really loved her father? How could anyone not love such a kind and cheerful man? And how could she even compare her father to this arrogant man who didn't even know what real love was? Alex couldn't believe her mother didn't see it. Why had Roman moved in? Simply because no one else would take him in. She had no choice but to accept and adapt to this new life. Alex barely spoke to her stepfather and tried to keep her distance. But yesterday, he decided to speak to her himself, just a few days after she had turned 18. "Alex, sweetheart," he said in an overly affectionate tone, first checking that Deborah was outside and couldn't hear him. "You're an adult now. You can decide for yourself how you want to live." He took her hand and pressed it to his lips. "When your mom leaves for work, let me make you feel so good you'll forget about everything. And don't worry about your mother. I never loved her. She's already old." Alex was outraged. "She's 5 years younger than you. You're the old creep who came here to take advantage of everything. And now you think I'll sleep with you. I'm telling Mom everything. She'll kick you out, and you'll have to find some fool to take you in." "Oh, yeah?" "Go ahead, tell her," Roman sneered. "Let's see who she believes." He pushed Alex aside and left the house. She saw him walk up to her mother and kiss her roughly in the yard in front of the neighbors. Deborah blushed with pleasure and giggled. Alex told her mother everything about the conversation with Roman and instantly regretted it. "You're trying to steal my man?" Deborah snapped in anger. "You think I'll throw him out so you can take him? Not happening. He's mine, and this house is mine. I never thought you'd grow up to be like this. I don't want to see you anymore. Get out of my house." Alex turned pale and tried to explain that she was telling the truth, but Deborah wouldn't even listen. She ran inside, tears streaming down her face, and began packing her things. She accidentally came across a photograph of her father, which was tucked in with her documents. She sobbed loudly, then grabbed a bag of hastily gathered clothes and rushed out of the house. She didn't know where to go. They had no relatives nearby, only her cousin, Josh, who lived in a big city. Their grandmother had left him a 4-bedroom apartment, asking him to help out family when needed. Alex and her mother had visited him last year. They had even taken a bus there. She realized she had left her phone at home, but she didn't care. She didn't want to hear her mother's accusations anyway. At the train station, Alex bought a ticket. Thankfully, she had some of her own money, and within an hour, she was on the train. She wasn't sure how Josh would react to her arrival, but she had no other choice. Her seatmate was a woman in her 30s who kept glancing at Alex's tear-streaked face. Eventually, she couldn't hold back and asked, "Something happened? Did your boyfriend not show up to see you off?" Alex shook her head and gave a sad smile. "If only it were just that." "No, it's much worse." She hesitated, but then poured out her entire story to the kind-looking stranger about her father's death, her mother's betrayal, the awful man she had brought home, and how she had to leave everything behind, even her college education. Now, She was heading into the unknown, unsure if her cousin would even take her in. The woman listened attentively without interrupting, then offered Alex some tea and food. Within a few hours, the two were talking like old friends. Her name was Kate, and she genuinely felt sorry for Alex. Kate sighed, thinking about what would happen if Josh refused to help her. Then she suddenly said, "You know what, Alex? Come live with me. I have a big house all to myself. My husband is away in Sweden for another year, and we don't have kids yet. Honestly, the place feels like a giant maze, just missing a minotaur. It would be nice to have some company. Plus, you can help out around the house. What do you think?" Alex was taken aback by the offer. She hadn't expected this at all, but after a moment, she threw her arms around Kate, overwhelmed with gratitude. Early the next morning, they got off the train at Kate's stop. Alex was responsible and hardworking, so Kate had no complaints about her new housemate. Alex quickly found a job, even though the pay was low, but it was enough for food and basic necessities, so Kate had no problems with her. They got along really well. One morning, Alex was woken by loud voices in the hallway. "Welcome home. Your husband's back." It was Slade, Kate's husband. He had returned from Sweden 3 months early and was not happy about the stranger in his home. "I'm not going to put up with some outsider living here," he told Kate. "I don't care about her problems. You brought her here, so you deal with it." "Alex, you'll have to leave," Kate said apologetically. "With your salary, you can't afford rent. So you either go to your cousin's or find a husband. Don't look at me like that. I actually know someone in a small village. Aunt Martha and her son, Sam. They have a nice house, and she needs help. Her son's disabled, burned himself badly as a baby. He's 23 now. She's looking for a wife for him. Think about it, and we can go tomorrow if you decide." Alex barely slept that night. She didn't want to go to Josh. His wife was horrible. So she decided to take a chance with Sam. The next day, they arrived in the village. Aunt Martha eyed Alex critically. "So Kate says you're hardworking. Not sick, are you? I already have one invalid. And why doesn't anyone else want you? You look decent enough." Seeing Alex tear up, Martha softened a little. "All right, don't cry. You can stay. Sam, get over here." Sam was a timid young man with fearful eyes. One of his arms was twisted, and he walked with a limp. He studied Alex curiously, half listening to his mother's instructions about their new housemate. Then he just shuffled away. Alex stayed. Martha was rough but didn't mistreat her. Sam was kind, but completely dominated by his mother. He barely spoke around her, and when Martha declared that he would marry Alex, he didn't argue. Alex rarely left the house. There was no work in the village, and Martha wouldn't let her travel to the nearest town. Then, one day, Martha went to visit her sister for a few days. Before leaving, she left Alex a long list of chores and warned Sam not to do anything stupid. Sam was unusually cheerful all day. That night he entered Alex's room. She was terrified and tried to push him out, but he said firmly, "We're getting married anyway. If you refuse, I'll tell my mother you came onto me." Alex knew that Martha would believe her son over her. She was tired of always being blamed unfairly. She had no strength to run again. So she gave in. A few months later, she realized she was pregnant. But for some reason, Martha kept delaying their wedding. When she finally noticed Alex's growing belly, she stormed to her son. Sam panicked. "It's not mine. I never touched her." No matter how much Alex insisted that he was the father, Martha refused to believe her. It was a cold April night. Alex walked down the village road, carrying a worn-out bag of things that Martha had thrown together for her. There was no way to get to the city at this hour. She just kept walking, wiping away tears. After 3 miles, she reached the main highway and spotted a police car. Gathering her courage, she knocked on the window. A young officer stepped out, looking surprised. "Can I warm up inside?" she asked softly. From inside the car, an older officer called out, "Come on, Mike, let the girl in." Mike quickly opened the door, helped Alex inside, and handed her a cup of hot tea. As he looked into her eyes, still wet with tears, something in him stirred. And that's where her new story began.